When people think about signs that a man has feelings for someone, they often imagine obvious romantic gestures, constant compliments, or dramatic declarations of affection. But some of the strongest signs are much quieter than that. In fact, one of the most powerful indicators that a man has genuine feelings for you is something so subtle that many people overlook it completely. He remembers the things everyone else forgets. At first, this may not seem important. After all, remembering a detail from a conversation doesn't sound nearly as exciting as a grand romantic gesture. But psychology tells us something interesting about human attention. People naturally pay closer attention to things that matter to them emotionally. The more important someone becomes, the more mental space they occupy. As a result, details connected to that person tend to stay in memory far longer than usual. Think about everyday conversations. Most people hear hundreds of pieces of information throughout the week. They quickly forget what someone mentioned about their favorite coffee, a stressful meeting, a childhood story, or a goal they hope to achieve someday. These details come and go because they carry little emotional significance. But when a man develops feelings for you, something changes. Information connected to you starts standing out. You casually mention your favorite book during a conversation, and weeks later he brings it up. You tell him about an important event coming up, and he remembers to ask how it went. You share a small story that seemed completely unimportant, and somehow he recalls it long after you've forgotten mentioning it. These moments may appear minor, but they reveal something significant happening beneath the surface. The reason this happens is simple. Emotional investment increases attention. When someone matters to us, we naturally become more focused on what they say. We listen more carefully. We notice more details. We remember more information. It isn't necessarily a conscious decision. The brain simply places greater importance on information that's connected to people we care about. What's especially interesting is that these remembered details are often not the things you would expect. They are rarely limited to major life events. Instead, they are often small, personal pieces of information that reveal genuine attention. He remembers your favorite snack, the name of your pet, the vacation you've always wanted to take, or the hobby you mentioned months ago. These details matter because remembering them requires something more than politeness. It requires interest. Many people can remember important facts when they make a deliberate effort. But remembering small personal details often happens because someone was truly paying attention in the moment. And paying attention is one of the clearest expressions of emotional investment. Psychologists often explain that memory and emotion are closely connected. Events that carry emotional significance tend to be stored more effectively in the brain. That's why people often remember special moments, meaningful conversations, and important relationships more clearly than routine daily events. When a man develops feelings, conversations with you stop feeling routine. They become emotionally meaningful, which makes the details easier to remember. You may also notice that he doesn't just remember things, he follows up on them. He asks about goals you mentioned. He checks on challenges you were facing. He remembers important dates or events. This follow-up behavior reveals that he isn't simply storing information. He is actively interested in your life. Over time, these small moments create a pattern. You begin noticing that he remembers things nobody else remembers. He pays attention to details others overlook. He notices things that matter to you because, in a very real sense, you have started mattering to him. Because when a man consistently remembers the little things, he's often revealing a big truth. His heart has been paying attention long before his words ever admit it. One of the clearest signs that a man has genuine feelings for you is something that often goes unnoticed, because it doesn't look dramatic from the outside. It isn't a grand romantic gesture, an expensive gift, or a bold confession. Instead, it appears through something much more meaningful, his growing curiosity about your world. When a man develops feelings, he doesn't just enjoy being around you. He becomes interested in understanding you. This is important because most conversations in everyday life remain fairly surface level. People talk about work, daily routines, current events, or whatever happens to be happening at the moment. The interaction stays comfortable, but it rarely goes much deeper. However, when emotional interest begins to grow, curiosity begins to change the nature of those conversations. A man who has feelings for you starts wanting to know more than basic information. He becomes interested in your opinions, your experiences, your dreams, your goals, and even the small details that make you unique. He asks questions not because he is trying to fill silence, but because he genuinely wants to understand who you are. Think about how people behave when they are emotionally invested in something. They naturally want more information. They want to learn. They want to explore. The same thing happens in relationships. The more important someone becomes, the stronger the desire to know them on a deeper level. You may notice that his questions become more thoughtful over time. Instead of simply asking how your day was, he asks how you felt about something that happened. Instead of focusing only on what you are doing, he becomes interested in why it matters to you. He wants insight into your thoughts, not just updates about your schedule. What's especially revealing is when he remembers previous conversations and builds on them. You mention a goal you're working toward, and weeks later he asks about your progress. You talk about a challenge you're facing, and he checks to see how things turned out. You share a dream you hope to accomplish someday, and he continues asking questions about it in future conversations. This kind of curiosity reveals emotional investment because it requires attention, it requires listening, it requires remembering. Most importantly, it requires caring enough to follow up. Psychologists often explain that curiosity is one of the foundations of emotional intimacy. People become closer when they move beyond surface-level interaction and begin exploring each other's inner worlds. The desire to understand someone creates connection because it communicates an important message. Who you are matters to me. That message carries enormous emotional weight. A man who has feelings for you often becomes fascinated by things that would seem completely ordinary to everyone else. He wants to hear your stories. He wants to know what makes you laugh. He wants to understand what motivates you. He becomes interested in the experiences that shaped you into the person you are today. And here's what makes this sign so powerful. Genuine curiosity cannot be easily faked over long periods of time. Anyone can ask a few questions during a conversation, but consistently wanting to know more, consistently remembering details, and consistently showing interest in another person's life usually comes from something deeper. You may also notice that he values your perspective. When something happens in his own life, he wants to know what you think about it. Your opinions become important because he respects your viewpoint. This creates a two-way connection where curiosity exists on both sides, strengthening the emotional bond even further. Over time, his interest in your world becomes impossible to ignore. Conversations become more meaningful. Questions become more personal. The connection becomes deeper. And what started as simple curiosity often reveals itself as something much more significant. Because when a man genuinely wants to understand your dreams, your thoughts, your experiences, and the person you are beneath the surface, he is no longer just interested in talking to you. He is becoming emotionally invested in knowing you. One of the signs that often gets overlooked when people talk about attraction is not what a man says, but how often he finds reasons to stay connected. Many people expect feelings to reveal themselves through dramatic gestures, romantic speeches, or obvious confessions. While those things can happen, genuine feelings often show up in much smaller and more consistent ways. One of those ways is when a man repeatedly creates opportunities to keep communication alive, even when there is no practical reason to do so. At first glance, these interactions may seem completely ordinary. He sends you a funny video that reminded him of something you said. He shares a random thought during the day. He asks a simple question he could have easily figured out himself. He checks in to see how something went, even though it doesn't directly affect him. None of these moments seem particularly significant on their own. But when they happen consistently, they begin revealing a deeper pattern. The truth is that people make time for what matters to them. In today's world, everyone is busy. Most people have responsibilities, work, family obligations, goals, and countless distractions competing for their attention. Yet when someone occupies an important place in their mind, they naturally look for ways to stay connected. Communication stops being something they do only when necessary. It becomes something they do because they want to maintain a connection. Psychologists often explain that emotional attachment creates a desire for proximity. In romantic relationships, proximity doesn't always mean physical closeness. It can also mean emotional closeness. A man who has feelings for you often seeks small moments of interaction because those moments help him feel connected to you. What's interesting is that he may not even realize he's doing it. He might genuinely believe he's just sharing something interesting or asking a simple question. But underneath those actions is often a deeper motivation. He enjoys talking to you. He enjoys hearing from you. He enjoys knowing that some part of his day intersects with yours. You may notice that his messages don't always require a response. Sometimes he simply wants to share a thought. Other times he finds a reason to continue a conversation that could have ended much earlier. He may send something that reminds him of you, mention an experience he had during the day, or bring up a topic you've discussed before. These small efforts often reveal that you occupy space in his thoughts, even when you're not together. Another important clue is consistency. Anyone can reach out occasionally, but when communication becomes a regular pattern, it often signals something more meaningful. A man who repeatedly creates reasons to interact is showing that maintaining the connection matters to him. He isn't simply responding when it's convenient. He is actively contributing to keeping the relationship alive. This behavior becomes even more noticeable when there is no obvious benefit for him. He isn't reaching out because he needs help, wants a favor, or requires information. He reaches out because he enjoys the interaction itself. In other words, the conversation becomes the reward. There is also an emotional comfort hidden within these small connections. The more someone cares, the more they appreciate brief moments of contact. A simple exchange can brighten their day. A short conversation can create a feeling of closeness. Over time, these small interactions accumulate and strengthen the emotional bond between two people. Many relationships grow not because of a few extraordinary moments, but because of countless ordinary ones. The daily check-ins, the random messages, the shared jokes, and the simple conversations often become the foundation of deeper emotional attachment. They create familiarity, trust, and connection. And that is why this sign is so important. Grand gestures may capture attention, but consistent effort reveals genuine interest. Because when a man repeatedly finds small reasons to stay connected, he is often showing that staying connected to you is exactly what he wants. One of the most revealing signs that a man has feelings for you is something he may not even realize he is showing. Unlike carefully chosen words or deliberate actions, this sign often appears naturally and unconsciously. It can be seen in his energy, his expressions, and the subtle changes in his behavior when you enter the room. Simply put, his mood changes when you're around. This is one of those signs that people rarely talk about because it isn't as easy to measure as a text message or a compliment. Yet psychologically, it can be one of the strongest indicators of emotional attraction. When someone genuinely cares about another person, their emotional state becomes influenced by that person's presence. Seeing them creates excitement. Talking to them creates enjoyment. Being around them creates positive emotional energy. Think about how you react when you see someone you genuinely enjoy being around. Your mood naturally lifts. You become more engaged. You smile more easily. You feel more interested in the moment. These reactions happen because positive emotions are already associated with that person. The brain has learned to connect them with enjoyable experiences. The same thing often happens when a man develops feelings. You may notice that he seems more animated when you're present. Conversations that were ordinary suddenly become more energetic. His attention becomes sharper. His smile appears more often. Even if he was distracted or stressed before, your presence seems to shift something in his emotional state. What's important is that these reactions are often difficult to fake consistently. While someone can pretend to be interested for a short period of time, genuine emotional responses tend to reveal themselves naturally. A man who has feelings may not consciously decide to smile more when he sees you. It simply happens because seeing you triggers positive emotions. Psychologists often explain that attraction influences both emotions and behavior. When someone becomes emotionally important, interactions with them activate feelings of anticipation, happiness, excitement, and comfort. As a result, physical expressions often change as well. Body language becomes more open. Eye contact becomes more frequent. Expressions become warmer. Energy levels increase. One subtle sign is how quickly his mood improves when a conversation begins. Perhaps he seemed quiet before you arrived. Maybe he appeared tired or preoccupied. Then almost immediately his demeanor changes. He becomes more present, more interested, and more engaged. This emotional shift often happens because your presence creates a positive emotional response, Another clue is how long that positive energy lasts. A man who enjoys being around you often continues smiling or thinking about the interaction even after it ends. The conversation stays with him. The good feeling remains. This happens because emotions don't always disappear the moment an interaction is over. Positive experiences can influence mood long afterward. You may also notice that he laughs more around you. Humor becomes easier. Small moments become more enjoyable. This isn't necessary because you're telling jokes every minute. It's because attraction often lowers emotional barriers and increases feelings of comfort. When people feel good, they tend to smile and laugh more naturally. What makes this sign particularly meaningful is that it reflects something deeper than simple attraction. Physical attraction may draw attention, but emotional attraction affects emotional well-being. When a man's mood consistently improves around you, it suggests that your presence has become associated with positive feelings in his mind. Over time, this emotional connection grows stronger. He begins looking forward to seeing you. He anticipates conversations with you. He enjoys the experience of being around you because it genuinely enhances his day. Without realizing it, he starts associating happiness, comfort, and enjoyment with your presence. And when someone's mood consistently becomes brighter the moment you appear, it often means that you're no longer just part of their day. You've become one of the best parts of it. One of the most overlooked signs that a man has genuine feelings for you is not found in what he says about the present, but in how he talks about the future. Most people expect feelings to reveal themselves through obvious romantic behavior, yet some of the strongest clues appear long before any direct confession. They show up in small comments, casual conversations, and subtle ways he begins including you in his future thinking. At first, these moments may seem insignificant. He mentions a restaurant he thinks you would enjoy visiting together someday. He talks about an event happening months from now and casually suggests that you should go. He brings up a movie that hasn't been released yet and says the two of you should watch it when it comes out. None of these comments sound like a dramatic declaration of love. In fact, they often sound completely ordinary. But psychologically, they reveal something important. Human beings naturally imagine the future. We constantly think about upcoming plans, experiences, goals, and possibilities. When someone starts occupying an important place in our emotional world, they often begin appearing in those mental pictures. We don't necessarily plan it. It simply happens because they have become significant to us. A man who has feelings for you often begins including you in these future scenarios without even realizing what he's revealing. Instead of viewing you as someone connected only to the present moment, he starts imagining experiences that involve you later on. That shift may seem small, but it reflects a growing emotional investment. Think about it this way. Most people don't automatically include everyone they know in future plans. Future thinking is selective. We naturally picture the people we hope will still be part of our lives. When someone consistently appears in those thoughts, it usually means they hold a special place in our minds. What's especially interesting is how casual these comments often sound. He may not be trying to communicate his feelings directly. In many cases, he isn't even fully aware of what he's doing. He simply talks about the future in a way that assumes your presence. And that assumption itself can be incredibly revealing. Psychologists often explain that emotional attachment changes how people think about time. When someone becomes important, the relationship stops being limited to the present. The mind naturally extends it forward. We begin imagining future conversations, future experiences, and future moments together. This creates a sense of continuity that strengthens emotional bonds. You may notice that his future-oriented comments become more frequent over time. What starts as a simple suggestion gradually evolves into larger conversations. He talks about places you'd enjoy visiting. He shares ideas about experiences the two of you should have. He discusses plans that stretch weeks or months into the future. Another important detail is the comfort level behind these comments. A man who casually includes you in future plans often feels emotionally secure in the connection. He isn't just focused on today's conversation. Some part of him already expects you to remain in his life. That expectation reveals trust, attachment, and growing emotional significance. This doesn't necessarily mean he has mapped out every detail of a future relationship. It simply means that when he imagines upcoming experiences, your presence feels natural to him. You have become someone he wants beside him for moments he hasn't even experienced yet. Over time, these small comments begin forming a pattern. You realize that he isn't only talking about what happened yesterday or what's happening today. He keeps finding ways to include you in tomorrow. And the more often he does it, the more meaningful it becomes. Because when a man quietly starts making space for you in his future thoughts, he's often revealing that you've already become an important part of his emotional world long before he's found the words to say it. Perhaps the most powerful sign that a man has feelings for you is also one of the least discussed. It doesn't always show up through compliments, constant communication, or romantic gestures. Instead, it reveals itself through something much deeper, the importance he begins placing on your opinion. When a man develops genuine feelings, your thoughts, your perspective, and your approval often start carrying more weight than he would ever openly admit. At first, this change can be subtle. He asks what you think about a decision he's considering. He seeks your perspective on a situation at work. He wants your opinion about something he's planning or a goal he's pursuing. None of these conversations seem particularly romantic on the surface. In fact, they can appear completely ordinary. But beneath them is an important psychological shift. People naturally value the opinions of those who matter to them emotionally. The more significant someone becomes, the more influence their perspective tends to have. This doesn't mean a man suddenly stops thinking for himself or bases every decision on another person's approval. Rather, it means that your thoughts begin carrying emotional importance because you have become emotionally important. Think about the people whose opinions matter most in your own life. Their words affect you differently than the words of strangers. Encouragement from them feels more meaningful. Criticism from them feels more impactful. Their approval creates satisfaction. Their disappointment can linger in your mind. The reason is simple. Emotional connection increases emotional influence. The same thing happens when a man develops feelings. He may start paying closer attention to what you think. Your perspective becomes valuable because he respects you. He trusts your judgment. He cares about how you see him. And that concern often reveals more than any romantic statement could. One sign of this is how seriously he listens when you speak. He doesn't dismiss your ideas or quickly move on to another topic. Instead, he genuinely considers what you're saying. Even when he doesn't fully agree, he takes your viewpoint seriously because it matters to him. That level of respect often reflects emotional investment. Another clue appears in how he reacts to your encouragement. When someone we care about believes in us, their support has a unique power. A man with feelings may feel particularly motivated by your confidence in him. Your praise means more. Your recognition feels more rewarding. Your belief in his abilities carries emotional significance that goes beyond ordinary validation. At the same time, your disappointment may affect him more than he lets on. Not because he is seeking perfection or constant approval, but because he values your perception. If someone doesn't matter emotionally, their opinion has limited impact. But when someone becomes important, their perspective begins influencing how we feel about ourselves and our choices. Psychologists often explain that emotional attachment increases sensitivity to feedback. We become more aware of what important people think because maintaining their respect and connection matters to us. This is why a man who has feelings may spend more time considering your reactions, your thoughts, and your impressions than he would with most other people. You may also notice that he shares things with you before making major decisions. He wants your input. He values your perspective. He feels more comfortable moving forward after hearing what you think. This doesn't mean he needs permission. It means he genuinely respects your viewpoint and wants it included in the process. Over time, this pattern becomes increasingly clear. Your opinion isn't just another opinion. It becomes one of the opinions that matters most. Your encouragement motivates him. Your perspective influences him. Your approval feels meaningful. And all of that points to something deeper than simple friendship or casual interest. Because when a man quietly starts caring about what you think, what you feel, and how you see him, he's often revealing that your place in his heart has become far more important than he's ready to put into words.